God, we thank you so much for this morning. Thank you, God, for bringing everyone here that you have. And we just pray now in this church history hour that you would show us, Lord, what it is that you'd like us to learn from this individual. And we, as we look into your Bible, God, I pray you'd give us the light that even in our personal lives, God, that we can apply. And all this we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right. Good morning. We are looking at images, icons, in 1270 years of burning. What's this all about?
Catholics.
A man named John of Damascus.
Yes.
And he's dated 675 to 749. And I had to check the math on this, and I think my calculator was right, but that would leave him dying at 104.
Well,
That's a lot. Is that right?
It's 74.
It is 74?
Yeah.
Missed it by a
Right.
tiny bit.
670? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I think.
6.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. 74. Okay, leave that alone then. Don't worry about that.
We knew that.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and consider this man. We're going to look at John considered. All right, so he is considered the last of the post-Nicene fathers. And I'm going to explain that in a second here. And I found this out by the Greek church. And I'm probably going to spell this wrong, probably 5 or 6 times. So Nicene. Post-Nicene Fathers by the Greek church. I guess what we'd call Roman church, they consider their last father, post-Nicene father, their last is actually Gregory, that we looked at a couple weeks ago. So we're obviously not talking about him today, but that's different. Okay. So I wanted to explain this because now we're getting into some weird phraseologies. What is a post-Nicene father? So first of all, there's 3 classes of what's historically called church fathers. Number 1 is the apostolic fathers. Number 2 is called the anti-Nicene. And number 3 is what we're talking about, post-Nicene. Okay, so ultimately this thing here is referring to the council. Can you guess where?
Nicaea.
Exactly, Council of Nicaea. I think I did that. And that's dated at 340, 325. 325 AD. So apostolic is supposed to be, these are supposed to be, let me see, they were supposed to have been contemporary with one or more of the apostles who lived and wrote before AD 120. So I don't know. You get what I'm saying there. They're supposed to be closer to the original. What you're going to find out, and if you haven't already found out in church history, is when we're talking about church fathers, period, you always got to take it with a grain of salt, because some of these guys were just blatant fruitcakes, and that's a nice way of stating it, as you're going to see today. So John of Damascus, by the Greek church, he's considered the last post-Nicene father. Okay? All right. So that was the 3 classes. Now we're going to look at the problems with church fathers. Doctrinally. All right. So the Roman Catholic position would place church fathers on par with your Bible. Okay. So that's a doctrinal problem right there. So I'll just put this. Rome say, like Confucius say, fathers equal with the Bible. That's what they say, the church fathers. And which should probably really scare you after we see what this particular church father held on to. So many of the crazy unbiblical beliefs that Rome holds to today, they actually run to the church fathers to justify. Because remember, and here I'm sitting in a room of ex-Catholics as well. You guys probably know better than I do, but they say it's tradition and the Bible is equal. And so they lumped the church fathers on the tradition side. Like, we obviously have this church tradition of church fathers that goes all the way back to being contemporary with so-and-so, and we have popes that go all the way back to Peter. And it was interesting when we were at the boulevard, the lady said, "Do you know who the first pope was?" And I said, "Why, yes, I do." And she's like, "Who was it?" I was like, "It was Constantine." And she's like, no, it was Peter. I was like, "It was Constantine." Anyway, you know, it's kind of, don't ask a question if you don't want the answer kind of thing. But go ahead and write down Psalm 138, verse 2, and also Matthew 4:4. All right, and what we're talking about is the topic of is church history, is tradition and church fathers equal with the Bible? Psalm 138 verse 2 says, "I will worship toward thy holy temple and praise thy name for thy loving kindness and for thy truth." And then the key phrase here, "For thou hast magnified thy word above all thy name." So what do we learn about God is He magnifies His word above tradition and above church fathers. And then Matthew 4:4, if that's not good enough, which for most folks it's not. You can't just read a verse and have people believe it anymore. You know, now you have this whole other section of Christians that say, "Oh no, if Jesus didn't say it, then I can't believe it." Okay, that's fine. We can play your game. It's unbiblical, but let's play that game. Let's go to Matthew 4:4. And in Matthew 4:4, we have Jesus Christ in the wilderness being tempted by the devil. And if you have your little red letter edition, Matthew 4:4, it says, "But he answered and said, It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every church tradition and church father, plus," no, it says, "but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God."
Get 'em.
So I was told by a Catholic a little over a year ago, "Why do you guys always say that thing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, "You guys always say the Bible is the final authority in all matters of faith and practice. You always say that. That's not in the Bible." And, you know, there's a few different ways you could answer that. You could say the word toothpaste is not in the Bible and it's still useful. You know, I mean, anyway, you can go on and on. But what I actually was thinking about was this verse right here. This is why we constantly say that. that the Bible is the final authority in all matters of faith and practice, because Jesus Christ says that you're not to live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. That's why. That's why the Bible is the final authority. Just blame it on Jesus. So, that shows you that Catholics are getting more familiar with your material as well. And they're scholars like Carl Keating, they're defenders of their conquistadors today, are trying to think of more slippery ways to deceive. So, all right. And I mean, you think about that argument, why do you believe that? That's not in the Bible. You could say that about 90%, probably 95, 90, I don't know, probably more, of the Roman Catholic Church, period. Why do you believe that? That's not in the Bible. Why do you do that? That's not in the Bible. And now they're figuring out how to turn the argument around and deceive. Isn't that interesting? So, all right, so we looked at John considered. Now we're going to look at his commendations. John's commendations. Now, the most notable topic when John of Damascus is brought up, he was most notable for his unbiblical position on the usage of images and what they refer to as aids for worship. Aids for worship. So he was, and it's interesting because on this guy particularly, you find some guys are like, oh my goodness, he was a scholar. And then other guys are like, he didn't have one original bone in his body. He was a compiler. Which, either way, when we look a little further, this guy was wicked. But anyway, it's just funny to see how, I don't know, higher criticism, it's like you can't believe in any one thing, and then you get this whole other wave of critics that come the other way, you know, and then you're finally arguing on if the book of Genesis is allegory.
Yeah.
You know. Well, we don't think Moses wrote the book of Genesis. It's like, man, you can't believe anything. What street do you live on? Well, that street name could be argued. You know what I mean? How many kids do you have? Really? You know? Anyway. But, all right, so this thing about this aids for worship. So, in John of Damascus, once again, largely, because of his idea with the idols, the images, he has affected your local Roman Catholic Church to the point where they still have them today. How many years later? 1,270 years later. They're still rolling with his theology. Isn't that interesting? And it just got me kind of thinking that this guy is in hell, burning. And you'll see, I'm not just making a blanket statement. You'll see I have a theory on why he's in hell. But just per se, he's in hell. And I was just thinking, man, I wonder if like for every 10,000 people that bows to one of these images, if he drops another level in hell. And it's like, man, it's been already 1,200 years, and he keeps dropping every 5 years. I mean, how many Catholics are there in the world? Like, it's the largest religion in the world, period. And I don't even know if there's anything that comes close. That could probably be studied out. But anyway, this is why when I was in Guatemala, this man is why when I was in Guatemala visiting Antigua, which was their original capital, there's this huge Roman Catholic church, and it's like, you visit there just to see what it's all about. It's medieval construction, and what do? You walk in, and the first thing you see is this glass box. You're like, there's something in this glass box. So then you walk a little closer, it's Jesus laying in a glass coffin. And there's people, and as they walk in, they go, And as they walk out, they go, why? Oh, it's an aid to worship. Doesn't that help you when you walk in and you see Jesus laying dead in his glass coffin? Doesn't that help you pray better? Huh? What?
Did they just put a skeleton?
No, it's like
What
it's
did
like they would have just. Yeah, he's not even wrapped up actually. Now that, which is when they laid him in the grave, he was wrapped. He's not even wrapped up. It's just like a mannequin.
They put a
with
mannequin.
like fake hair.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. But anyway, it's because of this man and this doctrine. Images, icons. All right, a couple things we look at the Bible about. We see, if you want to open up to Genesis 31:19, we see Laban's little images. Let's look over there. All right, Genesis 31. Is it? Did I put 31:19? 31:19.
Yeah, that's right.
Rachel stole it.
Oh, okay. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. So this idea, even though we're going back to 600 AD, and some people really want to think that John of Damascus really had something new. But guess what? We just went back, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. This is somewhere in the ballpark of 3,000 years ago? Maybe more? And Laban already had the images going on. Now, what is this what is this showing us? Kind of like our material we're looking at in the main service. This stuff is a lot older than the Roman Catholic Church would have you, well, they don't want to have you to believe, but it's older than Rome.
Yeah.
And we find it way back in Genesis, and Rachel got busted stealing her little aids to worship, which was always kind of a questionable thing, like, why did Rachel keep those things? She had a little heart problem going on. Also, we see Laban's little images, we see Gideon's big job. Open up to Judges 6, 25, and 26. And it says in Judges 6:25, it says, and it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, take thy father's young bullock, even the second bullock of 7 years old, and throw down the altar of Baal that thy father hath, and cut down the grove that is by it, and build an altar unto the Lord thy God upon the top of this rock, in the ordered place, and take the second bullock, and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the grove which thou shalt cut down. So we find that even Gideon's dad needed some aids to worship too, didn't he? This is a very old thing, this whole aids to worship thing. And as we're looking at in our main service, this is completely heathen, and it's completely unnecessary. There's nothing that you can fashion with your hands that can resemble God, okay? And anyway, you just see what people do with them anyway when they're made. Just watch, okay? Now, let me see. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. So I was just showing you these things mainly to show you how old the usage of images and idols are. And the topic of Gideon's dad having an altar. What's an altar for? Killing things. Why are they killing things? Well, is it always just things, like animals? I'm pretty sure you could find some people being killed on these things in the Bible as well. Weren't we talking about Molech last week. And so he even had to face his dad's cult religion. So now we're going to look at John's cultured idolatry. John's cultured idolatry. So the Catholic Church, ever since its founder, like we said, Constantine, was always trying to morph the world and paganism into things that were more acceptable. Right? He has this hallucination, and there's this burning cross with writing that says, "In this thou shalt conquer." He's completely hallucinating. And then because he either had the power to say off with your head, people start helping him entertain this hallucination. You know, when honestly they probably should have said, "I think you might need some sleep, Mr. Connie." You know, you might want to just kind of sleep it off. You got some things going on. But that was part of his whole plan, that he was going to conquer the world. It was a devil-possessed goal to submit the world to a religious system rather than salvation in God in the Bible. He wanted to submit the world to his religious system, his creation. Now, why I bring up Constantine and that little explanation is because if this is Rome's founder, Constantine, starting out so abruptly psychotic, I'm probably not even saying that, I'm not giving it really justice. Like, they started off so haywire and spinning out of control. Who can even come close to that? So really, when we're talking about Pope Gregory and what a mess he was, when we're talking about Gottschalk, what a mess he was, we're talking about John of Damascus, what a mess he was, they really didn't even come close to Constantine. So it's almost like if you can come with an initial shock, anything after that is just going to be water under the bridge. Like what? Images and icons. You can slaughter the whole world in the name of a hallucination. This really isn't that big of a deal, right? If you've already won them on that. So now John of Damascus, he shows up, and they don't even realize how big really this issue is. Now, because they were prepared and primed for John already by Constantine. Now, this pagan idolatry was capitalized upon. It falls into three main categories, and I think you can kind of put them in categories like this. Number one is called low, and it is low, nature worship. Low nature worship. Then number two would be like shamanism. And number three, high nature worship. So if you were to take all of the occultic religions, they would fall somewhere in one of these three. So low nature worship would be like the worship of animals, trees, rivers, hills, or stones. And I believe you can find all three, by the way, in the Roman Catholic Church. And you're like, but animals? Well, did you hear I said stones? What do you mean stones, Randy? Don't you remember last week when I was telling you, these people are sitting around this stone slab rubbing their rosary beads on it. What is that? Why would you go up and rub your Blarney stone? You know, what is that? This is occultism. So you have low nature worship. So in, I guess, Bible example, you just run back to Exodus and remember when Aaron's like, oh, I just threw these things in the fire and this bull came out. Oh, nice. Of course, he had to fashion it. But when he was put on the block, and had to answer to Moses, oh, it just came out that way. It was low nature worship. And then secondly, shamanism. So this is the magical side of paganism. I guess Mongolian tribes and some places in China, they do it. Or your local Roman Catholic Church. Huh? What do you mean? Well, yeah, in the middle of the Mass. Remember, once his knee hits the ground, this magic show happens, and we have a cracker, and we have juice that actually becomes the body and the blood of Jesus. It's shamanism. It's a magic show. And then thirdly, our high nature worship, not ours, theirs, the worship of sun, moon, stars, and of the supposed powers of nature. You think about Captain Planet. He's the hero. He's going to take pollution down to zero. You guys, no one remembers that? Okay.
I
All right. Well, praise the Lord you don't. She's a sinner. She remembers. But what were their powers? They had these characters.
Heart.
There was Earth. Was it? It's like the band Earth, Wind, Fire, and Heart. Was there water?
Yeah.
Anyway, but what is that? It's nature worship. It's paganism. And so anyway, and then once you start actually looking into Rome, you look at all their sun symbols. It all goes back to Baal. And if you need more information than you could swallow, just get Hyslop's Two Babylons. It's heavily documented, so much in fact that you probably won't finish the book. You'll choke on the first couple chapters and be like, okay, I get it. All right, I get it. And so isn't that interesting though? Idolatry being made acceptable. And we understand why that is, and it's because they're trying to bring the whole world under this antichrist system of a one-world religion. Yes. Now, image worship, although John of Damascus being one of the main proponents for image worship, obviously people had been using images to worship since getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And we'll just reference here Ecclesiastes 1:9. It says, the thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. At all. At all. So, okay, so now let's go ahead and end this thing with John's curious quirks. And let's just put the nail in the coffin. Shall we? So these are all going to be personal attacks on John of Damascus, just so you know. Good morning. All right, so never in all of his writings, and this goes back to why I'm attesting that there's 1,270 years of burning in hell. Never in all of his writings does he reference how to be saved, or blood atonement of Jesus Christ. All right, and go ahead and write down 1 Corinthians 2:14, and also John 16:13 through 14. This is the first one here. In 1 Corinthians 2:14 it says, "But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, For they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. Okay, so you're not going to understand these things that are spiritually discerned without the Spirit of God or salvation. Okay, there will just be some things that folks that are unsaved will just never grasp. And then in John 16:13 it says, Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. So Jesus is telling us that the Holy Spirit has a job, and it's to guide you. Okay? It says, For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. He shall glorify me, he shall receive of mine, and shall show it unto you. So this individual, the reason why he never referenced how to be saved or the blood atonement of Jesus is because he didn't know anything about it to write about. He was too busy hiring folks to make ceramic statues, which, you know, we see in the Bible is actually a pretty profitable business, and still is today. So next, personal attack. Randy, why would you personally attack people? Oh, we're just marking these people because of their doctrines and offenses, and that's what we're doing. The Virgin Mary appeared to him.
No way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So with Constantine, we see the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and his followers are also having hallucinations, and you know, satanic appearances. Now, I just want to point out here that the witch of Endor was smarter than him. The witch of Endor. Go ahead and go to 1 Samuel 28. Let's see. I just want to show you this. Because the witch of Endor had a reaction when she saw something come up.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He started entertaining it. Now we're in 1 Samuel 28, verse 12. And it says, and when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. She freaked out. Not old Johnny boy here. No, he starts talking to it and receiving messages, and isn't that interesting? This numbskull started worshiping the devil that transformed as an angel of light. So we're referencing 1 Samuel 28, 12, and also 2 Corinthians 11, 14. I'll read that. It says, And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. So he can appear as an angel even though he's not an angel. Now, Martin Luther, while compiling the German Bible, which is one of the key steps to your King James Bible, had an appearance of Jesus show up to him. And did Martin Luther fall on the ground and start worshiping this appearance? No, Martin Luther got his inkwell and with his strongest pitch threw it at this thing. And you're like, he threw his inkwell at Jesus? Well, turn over to Acts chapter 7. And let me show you why he threw his inkwell at this appearance of Jesus. And we're in Acts 7, verse 55. And this is Stephen just before he goes on into glory. And it says, But he, being full of the Holy Ghost, looked up steadfastly into heaven, and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing where? At the right hand of God. You know what Martin Luther's problem was? Is he was reading a little bit too much Bible. And, you know, he was a mess in some ways, but not this way. See, John of Damascus, who feigned himself, I mean, all these guys kind of feign themselves to be philosophers. They all study Clement, Origen, they're so intrigued with philosophy that they forgot to read the Bible.
Right.
Amen.
And Martin Luther wasn't as intrigued with philosophy. He started reading the Bible and ultimately got saved. Now, that's why he chose to throw his inkwell at this apparition. Now you think of this Catholic monk in the 1500s having that much sense. That's pretty interesting, wouldn't you say? But yet John of Damascus didn't have that much sense. Now, third personal attack. Is he believed the perpetual virginity of Mary. I'm going to read all these so you could write these references down. Write down Matthew 12, 46 through 47. Matthew 13, 55. Mark 6, 1 through 6. And John 2, 12. What I'm going to show you here is Mary had other children. Matthew 12, 46 through 47, while he yet talked to the people, Jesus, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without. Okay? So even the people around were under this impression that Jesus had brethren. Well, it's kind of like, you know, when you guys go to church, you say, hey brother, are you guys really brothers? No. I mean, they're probably cousins. That's what the Catholics will tell you. Matthew 13, 55. Is this not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And his brethren, just in case you're wondering who the brethren are, the Bible will tell you. His brethren, James and Joseph and Simon and Judas. Oh. So now we have people's names. Okay? Mark 6, 1 through 6, and he went out from thence and came into his own country, and his disciples followed him. And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many hearing him were astonished, saying, from whence hath this man these things? And what wisdom is this which is given unto him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother, once again, of James and Joseph, and of Judah and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?
Oops.
And they were offended at him, but Jesus said unto him, a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and his own house. And he could do no mighty work, and he could there do no mighty work, save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went round about the villages teaching. And lastly, John 2:12. And after this he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother and his brethren, look at this, and his disciples. So that whole argument, it's like when you say brother and sister at church, you're not really brother and sister. Actually, or it was actually he really had brethren and sisters with names that weren't disciples.
Right.
All right, so that's problem number one, is Mary had other children. Lastly, not lastly, I want to add to this. Mary and Joseph came together after the birth of Jesus. write down Matthew 1:18. And Matthew 1:25. Don't be alarmed, that's just the bomb in the hallway getting ready to go off. So, here we come, Jesus. Matthew 1:18, now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise, when as his mother, Mary, was espoused to Joseph, before they what? Came together. Before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. It's like before they met each other? Or it means what it says, okay? We don't need to go into much more explanation. And then also in verse 25, and knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son, and he called his name Jesus. So he never met her, I guess. Knew her not. Or knew her in a marriage way. Okay? I'm trying to say that as gently as I can. I think you get it. Okay? First point was she had kids. How did those kids get there? By newing. Okay? Now, thirdly,
That's good. How the Bible says it.
if Mary was a perpetual virgin, she perpetually defrauded Joseph, neglecting the God-given duty of a wife to her husband. Go ahead and write down 1 Corinthians 7:5. And it says, defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your inconsistency. So I could have blown this one up much greater. It is good for a man to find a wife. Adam needed a help meet for him. On and on from the beginning of the Bible, God created marriage, okay, between a man and a woman, and it is something godly and acceptable, okay? But when you have monsters that live in monasteries that want you to think that they are celibate when they're not, they're actually pedophiles in hiding, you can prove that in court, they want you to think that, oh, well, if they're as holy to stay pure and away from the other sex, that, of course, Mary, of all holiness, must never have consummated her marriage. She was married, right? A marriage without ever being consummated? That's kind of an interesting marriage. Anyway, all right. But what do we learn now about John Damascus in closing? He's another blank in anti-church history. That's what we learn. And it's like, oh, you know, some great man with this great doctrine. Yeah, that is damning people as we speak.
Right.
And I don't know exactly how hell works, but he knows exactly how it works. And I don't know if he would drop another level every 5,000 people that bow to an image, or 10,000, or 20,000, or 50,000, or every million that bow. But somewhere along the line, he keeps going down, and the flame keeps getting hotter and hotter. So that's why it's entitled today, Images, Icons, and 1270 Years of Burning. Let's go ahead and close in prayer.